Elementary School. And here we have Kylie, and she is 3 years old. We're going to be showing them some pictures of different skin type colored Barbies. So Kylie, which one do you think is pretty?
I know.
Just pick which one you think is pretty.
I just might pick that.
You pick this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kylie picked this one. She picked the classic Barbie doll. And okay, now you, Giselle, which one do you think is pretty?
Which one? This one.
You think this one's pretty? Okay, so Giselle thinks this one's pretty. Okay, cut it right there. Thank you for your cooperation.
I added like two of my and my big my little hair.
Yes, she's very pretty. Okay, you can go now. Alright, bye-bye.
I'll get out.
Okay, alright, so you said, can you repeat which one you thought was pretty? Okay, so just once again, she thought this one was pretty. Okay, now Virginia is going to ask you some questions.
Okay, so Giselle, we noticed that neither you or Kylie chose the dark-skinned Barbie doll. Is there a reason why?
Yeah.
Okay, why did you choose the light-skinned Barbie doll?
Her dress is so good.
Her dress, you didn't like her dress. It wasn't because she was darker skinned.
No.
Do you love your skin?
Yes.
Why?
Because I don't know, but it doesn't matter what skin I have.
What do you know about slavery? What have you learned in your class about slavery?
That Africans people were slavery because their skin was different from different people.
Do you think that if other little girls were to take this test that we showed you with the different colored Barbie dolls, who do you think that they would pick?
The white one?
Yeah? Why?
Because we think she's more pretty.
Why do you think so when you go to a toy store, who do you usually see more? White skin Barbies or dark skin Barbies?
White skin.
Why do you think that is?
Now I think because Barbie's famous.
Yeah? Do you think it's just because that's the way that she was made and people are just used to seeing her like that?
Yes.
Do you think that if there were more dark-skinned Barbies on the toy shelves, do you think girls would feel better about their skin?
Yes.
Yeah? Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Andy, and he is in 5th grade, and he goes to Centennial Elementary School. In your school, do you see teachers treating other students differently?
No.
Do you think that dark-skinned students or African-American students are usually given more help in school or less help? Or just it's equal?
In my opinion?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Do you see that there are kids who play with the African American kids?
Not always.
So do you see that African American kids just play within African American kids?
Well, sometimes, but like some Americans, they're not friends with Africans.
And
So
why
they
do you think that?
Maybe because their skin, maybe, and they might think that like they're in a lower level, they're not cool, or something like that, and the family's poor, or something like that.
Like, do you see any bullying in your school? Maybe not like they're punching each other, but maybe they're like, saying mean things to them.
Or maybe they're ignoring them when, you know, they could need a friend in the world. Do you see that?
Not really, but sometimes.
Yeah?
And when you see that, like, how does that make you feel? Like, what do you feel when you see that?
When I see that, I'm like, feel sorry for them. So I try to help them, but I think at the they're gonna get scared or something like that, because since like they might think that the white people, all white people, that are bad to them, so they're probably not gonna like be close to other white people.
And why do you think that they think that?
Probably because since they've been bullied a lot by white people.
So you see that a lot of white people bully African American kids.
But not a lot, rarely.
Rarely, but you do see it once in a while.
Yeah.
So do you think your school does a pretty good job of like making sure everyone is equal no matter what skin color you have?
And we have a lot of bullying assemblies that everybody should be treated equally.
And do you
stop
think
bullying.
and do you think that a lot of schools should have a lot of bully assemblies?
It helps a lot.
It helps a lot. Do you have any African American friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys like really close to each other?
We're really good friends.
When you're making friends as a boy, it's different in how you make friends like with the girl. No, it's the same. You think they make friends like about the same way? Do you think that you would treat them differently if they were an African American girl instead of an African American boy?
Like treat them differently?
Yeah. Like, do you think you'd probably act around them differently? Like,
No.
no, you'd be the same.
So, do you know why we're celebrating Martin Luther King Day tomorrow?
Because of what he accomplished, sort of, of the civil rights.
If Martin Luther King was still alive today, do you think he would be happy with how the world is today? Or do you think he would be sad knowing that his dream is not fully accomplished?
He will feel accomplished, but not a lot, because there's still some racism in the world still, but he will feel a little bit more glad.
How could we accomplish that dream that he had?
We could well, this is like a little bit dumb, sort of. Like we could like use like places to like travel around the U.S. or around the world and like see if there's like any racism, and then if they see a lot, they might make that like a law or something, like a strict law. Sort of. And anyone who's like anyone is like acting racism, they will go to jail, sort of.
Do you think if somebody put a law against racism and there would be strict rules on it, do you think people would change more?
Well, yes and no, because some some criminals, they don't like follow rules, and then they're like, oh, we don't care, and then they like do it like El Chapo, like what he did too.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good. Your answers were really good. Thank you. Here you go.
Okay, so this is Brianna, and she is in 6th grade, and she goes to Richfield Middle School, right, Brianna? Okay, Brianna, so we're going to ask you some questions today. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so our first question for you is, how do you view Africa? Like, when you hear the word Africa, what comes to your head?
Little kid in desert.
What do you know about African Americans? Like, when you see African Americans in your school or in your class, like, what do you think about them? Like, how do you see they act? Like, how are they in school? Like,
Sometimes happy and sometimes sad.
and why do you think they're sometimes happy and sometimes sad?
Mostly because they're sad about their skin.
And what about, like, what do they do, or what do they like how do they show that they're sad about their skin? Like, do you have any examples?
No.
No.
I think
You think
Yeah.
about that? And why do you think that?
because like I sometimes see them sad and happy.
Because you sometimes what?
See them happy and sad.
And you think that sometimes they're sad because they're not accepted because of their skin color?
Yeah.
When do you think that African American history began? Do you think that it began when they were brought here as slaves? Or do you think maybe their history began when Martin Luther King Jr. came in the picture? Or when do you think we really got to know more about African Americans?
I think when they become like slaves, I think that.
So you think when they came over here as slaves is when their history and we got to know about them more, right? Do you think they had any prior history to them before coming here as slaves?
No.
No? Okay. Alright. And our last question is, do you know some African American leaders that you have learned about in school, or maybe do you see some today?
Not that much, but I have not learned African Americans in school yet. But
You haven't learned any African American
Mm-mm.
leaders. So, do you know why we have no school Monday?
not mostly, but some. No.
No, so you don't know that on Monday
Mhm.
we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you do? Okay, you just forgot when I asked you. Okay, all right, it's okay. Okay, all right. That's all the questions we have to ask you, Brianna. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you.
The things they say about me. Walk in the room.
So, Jason, what do you know about the discovery of America?
All I know, I guess, is Christopher Columbus. He came here. That's all I know.
You know, they didn't teach you anything else about it?
I mean, probably, but I don't remember.
Did you know that if it weren't for African American guide, Christopher Columbus would have never found America in the first place?
No, I didn't know.
So, Marcos, tell us a little bit about what you know on the word intersectionality.
Well, I think it means that not everybody has the same chances based on your skin color.
Actually, it's quite the opposite. Intersectionality is when a person, it's basically defining how two people who are different are not going to have the same problems or are not going to be stuck in the same place. For example, a white middle class male who's heterosexual is not going to be in the same place or get stuck in the same problems as an African American woman who's dark skinned and is lesbian and lives in poverty. You get what I mean? Yeah. And why do you think that? Do you think that it's fair that you don't know about this? Because
No,
pretty
it's not
important.
fair because I think I have the right to know.
This is Cole. He's a senior at Richfield High School. What are some stereotypes on black women?
I'd have to say it depends on where they are in life. A woman that's higher up in society with their job and have a well-paying thing don't really have a lot of stereotypes to them. But then the women that are relying on their ex-boyfriend or whoever that is and they had a child with that person, they tend to rely on them a lot. That's a stereotype. And then another stereotype is that they live in bad neighborhoods. They're caught up in their kids end up caught up in like drug-related gang violence.
Why do you think that they are viewed like that?
Because generally that's what you see in movies and television. You see that they are in the ghetto and come from the ghetto.
Do you think that society enforces these stereotypes today?
I believe that you can get out of whatever you want to get out of. They themselves are just sitting there letting themselves kind of sit in the ghetto. They're not trying to get out and apply for a job. They're not doing what they need to do to get out of it. And for those that say that the government is making them stay there, that's not necessarily true. They can go back to school even with the child. They can get their way out. It's not the government, it's them themselves.
Thank you, Cole.
Okay, so this is Henry, and he's in his second year of college now. So Henry, do you know more or less about African Americans and their history now that you're in college?
Hello, everybody. I would say yes, since I took history class in college recently, and I'm more knowledgeable African Americans and how slavery ends and stuff like that.
So, in high school, do you feel like there was a lot of importance put on African Americans and their history?
I would say yes, since I took a history class with Fullerton.
Okay. And do you think if you wouldn't have had Fogelson for that class, you would have had some other teacher, do you think you would have learned as much?
Probably, since he was really passionate with his teaching, so I think it would have failed a little bit if someone else would have taught in the class.
Okay. Do you see any activism in your school with the events that have been happening with police brutality in African Americans?
I heard some events going on, but honestly, I haven't heard any activism in my school or in my college.
Do you think there's a reason for that? Maybe there's not enough African Americans there, or there's not a lot of importance put on it?
I would say there's not a lot of African Americans there because it's really apart from the city. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you know about the history of African Americans?
Well, everything started with slavery, and since then, well, I don't know. People think that it's kind of racism with police and African Americans going on lately.
Why do you think it started with slavery? Do you think that there's more to it than just when Africans came to Europe as slaves, or do you think that there's more history on them before slavery?
It's a little hard to answer that question, but I don't know. I think, well, I don't know deeply how everything happened, but yeah, I think maybe because Europe was really like they progressed a lot, and in Africa, or I don't know how to answer that question.
Henry, what or who are some Black leaders that you know of besides the obvious, like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr.? No? Okay. Do you think it's important for us to know about these leaders that we normally don't know about?
Yeah, I think it will be good to know more leaders.
Do you think it would, if people knew more about these leaders and what they did, would there be more activism in stuff that has been going on?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Do you think that if we knew about these Black leaders, like in high school, if we learned about these, do you think that it would play a key part in us being able to do something about things? Like, for example, now that there have been like more hearings of African Americans and police brutality, do you think people would be more passionate about doing something if they knew about these leaders?
Yeah, I think it will affect a lot, like I said, and like more people would have, I don't know, probably gonna respect more what's going on.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Henry.
Papa, he was gone trying to make a dime. Mama kept us warm when there was no sunshine. I was busy building up my reputation.